Hey all, Pixel here in Purple Garage, and we're back on the subject of the Oldsmobile. You may have noticed when I was doing the roof work on the van, which I'm still in the middle of at this point, that the garage was empty. The Oldsmobile's been in there forever. Well, the main big reason for that is I am done with this car. Some of you have pulled it off down by the time this comes out, but you may have seen the video I put up that was basically like, hey, make me an offer, come get it out of my life. Nobody did. But I'm just done with this car. I'm burned out on it. There's a half-made video because I was working more on the rust repair on this. I found more rust. The rust repair turned into a whole big problem, and I decided I don't even want to work on it enough to get it nice to sell it because I'm done with it. But nobody wants to buy it like this because it's half torn apart and blah blah blah. So unfortunately, I have to look at other options. And what that other option is somebody just paid me a pretty good chunk of money, more than about half of what I was hoping to get for the whole car, for just the engine. He wants that 324 rocket, and I can't blame him. So I gotta pull that, pallet it, and it's gonna go to Fastenal, and it's gonna get shipped to Ohio. I'm filming this now because I'm gonna be starting in on that first thing in the morning, and I don't want to forget to film this before I tear the car apart. But yeah, I've got two people interested in the bumpers, and then the rest of it's going to get parted out. I am sad about this. It deserves to live on, but it is what it is, and I need it gone more than I need it finished, and nobody wants it the way it is, so this is where I am. So tomorrow, I start tearing its heart out. Alrighty, next morning we're getting at it. Turn the car around, open the awning. She's setting that up because right now half of it is not shaded by the awning. I'm sad I'm getting rid of the car, and this is once you rip its heart out, you're kind of getting rid of the car, at least as it currently is. But also, trying to turn it around, it died 5 times in the middle of the street trying to turn it around, which just shows, since it ran great when I bought it, how much just sitting has degraded it. And since I don't really want to work on it, it's just going to sit more, it's just going to degrade more, and maybe I'd get another win a few years from now. But that's not going to do it any favors either, assuming that even happens. So I wanted to sell it whole, nobody wanted it. This is how I'm going to get my money back out of it, so that we'll have the space to work on other stuff and have some money to work on some other stuff. Step 1, I think, is drain the oil, torque converter bolts, lower transmission bolts, exhaust, because once I do that I can put it back on the ground. Alrighty, so I've been working under here. We drained the oil. I've been trying to get this cover and the starter off, and I've discovered the first real problem. I hope that I can make that visible. This bolt is supposed to be above the cross member, but the mounts have collapsed enough that it is now behind the cross member and cannot be unthreaded. So I'm getting everything else off that I can, and then what I'm going to end up having to do probably is put a piece of wood under this already fairly bashed oil pan and lift the engine enough that I can get those bolts out. But I want to get all the other bolts and the starter and everything else off, so those are the only ones left before I start that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the exhaust off. I was going to try and unbolt it, but this is such a crappily put together exhaust, there's no real value in it. So, saw's all it is. Alright, so here's where I am. I've cut the exhaust free, I've gotten the starter out. In the process of getting these 2 bolts out to get this Taurus cover out, discovered that I didn't realize the mounts on this are weird. There's 2 mounts here, but the only other mount is way up at the front of the engine. So the transmission is mounted here, but it's got basically the engine to counter lever at the front of the engine holding it. So if I unbolt the engine from the transmission, on a more modern car, you support the front of the transmission with just like a strap across and you're fine. On this, it'll want to tip back down and it'll do all kinds of weird shit when we're trying to pull the engine. So we've decided we're pulling the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is take the nuts off of these, same thing with the front mount. And then that should allow us to basically lift the engine off this cross member once we've gotten everything else disconnected, and pull the whole thing out the front, and then I can separate it set on the ground. I think that's everything under here. I may end up having to take this cross member out. I'm not sure because it bolts in over here. But this whole, we jacked up here so I could get this up to get those out, and the whole thing tipped because the whole front mount ripped itself apart. So these two are collapsed, that one's torn. It is not a good idea to be under this while you're trying to like separate it. I'm not going to take like the bell housing bolts out while it's so unstable based on the condition of all the mounts. So it's safer to pull the whole thing. So I'm going to do that. She's been taking the front structure apart so we can get it out the front easily without having to go up and over the radiator and everything. Blah. Oh, I also need to cut the transmission cooling lines to get those out of the way. That's the other thing I needed to do under here. Everything, I believe, is disconnected underneath. This is all out. The radiator is loose but still hooked to the hoses. So we're going to drop it back down. We're going to put it on the blocks so it's not so low we can't get our hands under there. And then keep at it. We're making progress. All right. Sorry for not giving you more updates in between. It's just wanted to get stuff done. But at this point, radiator's out, cooling system's drained. I blew air through to try and push as much coolant out. Fuel system's disconnected. Ground is disconnected. The wiring's all disconnected. The throttle's all disconnected. The throttle, this has got a linkage for everything. And I unbolted this linkage from the wall, but it's not fully out of the way. That may pose a problem later, but right now I can't reach anything to do anything about it. The big vacuum line off the back of the carb is disconnected. The smaller vacuum lines are disconnected. The transmission linkage is disconnected from the column. I don't know if that's going to be sufficient or not. But I didn't think about it until I was not under there anymore. And so at this point, oh, the alternator's gone, the power steering pump is gone. So I think at this point, because I've already taken the nuts off, it should just be sitting in here. It shouldn't be connected to anything else. So we're going to go get lunch, and then once we get back from lunch, we're going to attempt to pull this. That'll be interesting because this is a big heavy lump and it's pretty far back in the engine, so we're going to be straining the engine hoist a bit. It's free, it's moved forward a couple of inches, but it's not coming any further forward, and we don't know if it's hung up on something, if it's just that the spline is not sliding out of the back of the transmission. So that's our current thing we're trying to figure out going on right now. But it'll move side to side and up and down, and it has come forward at least an inch or two. So it's not bolted to anything at this point. All the motor mounts are all trashed. The front one, when we lifted it up, just came apart, and the two rear ones just disintegrated. So if there is another mount, it's not going to hold it anyway, but we'll get to it. Yep. We are now free. We just have to physically get it out. Ta-da! Oh, I'm fucking wiped. We managed to get it out. Once it came loose, it was just a lot of jockeying and raising and lowering and get it around everything. There's no, like, clever way. It's just that sort of grunt work. This thing is particularly weirdly shaped. Once I got it out, then I discovered this was the cover I couldn't get off before. Turns out it shared a bolt with the motor mount bracket. So there was no way I was getting it out without undoing that, and I couldn't even see that that was the case in there. Fortunately, this giant puddle is because I did not know this. I knew there was something weird with the torque converters on these, but I didn't know what it was, and I just found out what it was, which is there's like this spider thing with the four back of the engine that bolts to every third bolt here. And I was like, oh, well, the torque converter bolts to the other side of this flex plate. Well, I'll just remove all the bolts to make sure it all comes apart. Turns out this isn't a flex plate. This is the front of the torque converter. Like, so once you unbolt all of these, this pops off, and all the fluid in the torque converter pours out onto the ground. So I have absolutely bloodbathed my entire driveway. I bolted this back on for obvious reasons of no more mess. This is going to go with the engine because it's where the starter mounts. I don't know if he's putting this on an automatic, a newer automatic, because there's conversion kits for that. I don't know if he's making it into a manual because there's conversions for that. But since this is where the smart starter mount is, he's obviously going to need that. I did have a casualty, which is that the cap did not survive. I feel bad about that, but I don't feel that bad about that because shit happens. Now, my partner had to go in because she just got completely overwhelmed by the heat. I don't blame her because, Jesus Christ, it's miserable out here. So we took all this front structure out to get the engine out, and that fender came off because it was only attached to that, which is not very well attached. So without the front structure, that was just going to cause more problems than it was worth. I'm going to put all that back together, the front structure back together, just so that the car, A, looks like a car, and B, you might as well store them as a car as opposed to a pile of parts. Yeah. I'm blathering because I don't want to work on this anymore. Alright, I'm chipping away at engine prep because I still haven't figured out how to get it on the pallet. But I've put the lower section back on over here. I'm going to put the starter on as well just because that's a good place to store the starter. I gave it a really quick scrape off and spray with the pressure washer just to make it look less horrible. So people at Fastenal won't freak out as much. It is going to be wrapped, but you know, still. Cut the heater hose off the car, used it to loop the heater hose, stuck these together, took this pulley off because the bolts were sticking way out, because the fan spacer, that's going to just get packaged with the rest. I removed the fuel line that went between here and looped here, stuck this here and zip tied it closed to seal up the fuel system for any vapor that might still be in there. Oh, there's a drain on both sides of the block. One of them is damaged and there's no handle to turn. So that side I couldn't drain, but I drained the other side and I tipped the block that way to help get the maximum amount of water out. It's still going to have coolant in it. There's no way to get it completely dry, but now it's way down low. So between that and closing up the hoses, it shouldn't leak any coolant. I drained the oil out of it, so it shouldn't leak any oil. I sealed up the fuel system, so like I said, whatever remaining fuel vapor that's in there shouldn't be a big issue. Another day. I don't remember where I stopped filming yesterday, but we moved the trailer over there. We're pushing this over here. I stepped in that patch of sand over there, pushing it. It absolutely ate shit. Just smashed to the ground and took most of the force on my right elbow, which is now in a lot of pain. I haven't broken anything. It's definitely a bruise, but whew, not having a fun time. Sorry, I'm cleaning up stuff. So as we left it, that's over there. We put a ton of kitty litter down on all of the flood here. It also leaked power steering fluid. Every time she turned the wheel, it was pumping out power steering fluid. So So today I gotta clean the whole driveway up. I have to reassemble the front of the Oldsmobile more or less, and tarp and everything, because it's supposed to rain tonight, so that's got to get completely covered back up again. And then once we have the outside cleaned up, so we don't have to worry about any problems in the rain, gotta work in here. This is coolant that isn't evaporating, and I can't rinse it all out without cleaning up this mess first. Transmission is just going to sit on this cart for the time being. Hopefully I can find somebody to buy that, so it doesn't just, I don't want to go to scrap because it's a perfectly good transmission. Engine, like I just said yesterday, I did a bunch of reassembling, sealing up systems and whatnot. This needs to go on the pallet, but the pallet needs to either go on the trailer or in the van first. Alrighty, I've got the engine packaged up for shipping. Sorry I didn't film it, but it was literally a couple of hours of just kind of staring at it and trying different things until I felt like it was stable. Basically, this and this are screwed to the cross pieces of the main pallet so that it's all locked together. And then this is screwed across to keep them together. These two are over top of the half of the motor mount that still exists, so that the front end can't move around. And then back here, similarly, that keeps those locked together, keeps the engine from moving that way. This can't move this way because that clamshell part of the motor mount is actually slightly canted and it's hooked on the back of that. That's part of why I put those two pieces of wood there, is to keep it down on there so it can't pull forward. And then I've got two ratchet straps that go around all of this and around the bottom to keep this all locked together. And since this is all screwed to the pallet, crossbars, this is all now one unit, and I'm really happy with how solid that all is. I don't feel any concern. I have two more ratchet straps, but there's really no good place to strap that doesn't risk breaking something if it shifts a little bit. So I'm going to say two 500-pound ratchet straps should be fine for this. And then all the bits and pieces. Air cleaner went back on top because there's no other good place to put it. He said that he's had fans that tend to get bent, so I took the fan off and zip tied it here so it's not really sticking out much of anywhere to get bent. Under here is the pulley that I also took off the front, because once I took the fan and its spacer off, the bolts were sticking way out, and that was just rattling around. So I tucked that under there. This is the road draft tube. This is the power steering pump. It's still, no matter how much I mess with it, it keeps wanting to dribble a little bit. So it's wrapped in a pig mat and stuffed in a bag to prevent that. The generator bracket and the throttle bracket have been screwed to this so that they're there, and then the generator, because the bracket stuck out so far from the side, I took the bracket off, screwed it down to this, and then put the generator on it, patted it with a bit of this, and then tightened it up, so that's now locked in there. And then these are the bolts for the fan and pulley tucked away there. So yeah, ready to go. In the meantime, the transmission that he didn't want, I threw it up on an Oldsmobile board I'm on Facebook. Basically, like, make me an offer, because I don't know what a Jetaway transmission's worth. And two different people offered me $500, both of which want me to ship it. So basically, the first one is getting it for $500, and similar to this guy, because I didn't have to pull it, I'm not charging him to palletize it and whatnot, but similar to this guy, it's just going to get put on a pallet and dropped off wherever he wants it. So I've got another pallet here that's going to get cut in half. That is going to get the drain plug pulled and the last of the fluid drained out of it. And then I need to seal up the tail shaft, which I'm just going to, like with the pump, I'm just going to shove a bit of pig mat or something at the end and then zip tie a plastic bag over it. These two lines are going to get bent over and zip tied or something like that. And then right now I have a rag stuffed in here, but I'll do a better job of finding something to plug that up. And I'm going to send this with its dipstick tube and kickdown link and shift linkage pieces that survived. There was another piece of shift linkage that got completely mangled, but he has a transmission. It's just his isn't rebuildable. So he wants this. That's ready to go. That's going to be real quick to do. Most of the work on it is just going to be the draining it and making sure it's not full of fluid, because I've already bloodbathed the driveway with it twice. I don't want to bloodbath some poor shipping company's truck. I stayed up way too late last night strapping that up and wrapping it up and everything. Like I said before, it's got, I was going to do before, basically I laid the plastic out, put some pig mats down to absorb any leaks after I drained it, and then wrapped the plastic around it and strapped it down to the pallet. So it's actually pretty solid and I'm pretty happy with it. Unfortunately, I spun the hub trying to get the wheel lined up and discovered that it was crunchy as hell. So I took it apart and everything's nasty in there, which normally wouldn't be like that big a deal, except it means I can't pull the trailer out and it's about to rain and I still haven't done sealant in the gutter on the van because I have 8 billion things going on at once. So I'm supposed to be going and getting breakfast right now. Instead, I need to clear out this side of the garage and shove all this over on that side so I can get the van in here so that the gutter with no seam sealer doesn't get full of water and potentially leak inside. Some of the things I do to myself sometimes. I was planning to clear this side out to become the side the car sits in while being worked on, so I can leave this side free for dumping ground. Wasn't expecting to do it at 8 in the morning in a panicked rush. Alright, this is all strapped up. The box on the front is all the extra parts and gaskets and whatever I had for that engine, because I don't need them anymore. So that one is 100% ready to go. Transmission, 100% ready to go, except that I remembered I needed to include the dipstick tube. So that's going to get zip tied on or something. But cool, yeah. Obviously got to strap these down good and tight when I leave. Make sure they don't wander off on the highway, because dear God, could obliterate a Kia with that. But there we go. Managed to get them both ready to go. Managed to get a nice chunk of change back. Basically, I sold these two for the last asking price I had for the complete Oldsmobile. And I still have all the other parts of the Oldsmobile to sell off. So sad as it is, it's actually good for me financially because it means I will get more back out of the car. So I think that's going to call it for now. Here with my bondaged engine and my bondaged transmission. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.